In the Hunter x Hunter world, for the past 70 years or so, Isaac Netero has been the Hunter Association chairman. Most hunters alive today will only remember him as the head of the association, and he pretty much has become the symbol of what it means to be a hunter, with many following his ideals. This is reflected in the Hunter exam. With Netero being the head of the exam commission for the past decades, his influence on the exam is clear. By inspecting every phase of the exam, you can find a lot of characterization for the old geezer himself. So today, we will look at what each part of the Hunter exam means regarding Netero's character, and even look beyond that to see what it says about Netero's chimera and extermination endeavors, and his final will for the Hunter Association to go to the Dark Continent. Truly, we're going beyond. Let's start at the very beginning of the Hunter exam. And by that, I don't mean Sato's running test, I mean even before that. Hunters who are on their way to the Hunter exam are guided by navigators, who are put in place by the Hunter Association to lead any promising hunter applicants to the location of where the Hunter exam will take place. Without these navigators, it is impossible for one to find the hall where hunter applicants are together, since the hall's location is deliberately made to be hard to find. Unless you are a fan of the Steak Combo Grilled over Low Flame, then you might find the hall by accident. Navigators can only bring people who pass their tests to the exam hall. These initial tests by the navigators are all very low risk. Surviving a boat trip with an experienced captain, answering a simple multiple choice quiz, and being faced with a situation where innocent people are being attacked by magical beasts. What all these tests have in common is that you have to prove yourself as an individual to the navigators. The captain, old lady, and Kiriko magical beasts all judge the character of the potential candidates first and foremost, with very little rules to the test otherwise. As long as you prove you have a strong, resilient personality, you're good to go. Even something like Leorio jumping in to attack the old lady with a wooden stick was appreciated by her. Leorio rejected the question by doing so, which was the correct answer for the quiz, so he was able to pass the test together with his friends. I wonder what would have happened if Kurapika hadn't jumped in the way though. Save your son or your daughter. It's an impossible dilemma. The only correct answer is no answer. With this test in particular, Kurapika was the only one who figured out what the trick answer to the question was. Gon and Leorio naively just took the question head on and found the correct answer that way. Leorio passed the quiz by violently rejecting the question, and Gon passed by being too deep in thought about the presented dilemma, through which he figured out the true purpose of the test as well, since he is just that guy. All passed, which tells us there isn't only one way to answer correctly in these tests. Like a shrine in Zelda. There's infinite correct answers. What they just want to see is the strength of your character. The nose guy who actually made a choice showed that he is too overconfident, failed the test. Kurapika with his answer showed that he has wit, Leorio showed his passion and drive, and Gon showed his naive determination and readiness for the future. This multiple answers are correct type test could be seen as well during the Kiriko's test. Gon and Kurapika were able to see through the Kiriko's trickery and passed. Leorio did not manage to figure out what the Kiriko were doing, but his diligence and compassion in helping out the injured man still allowed him to pass the test. While the Kiriko test might seem full of risk, I do not think they ever had the intention to hurt Gon. They're just great actors, as can be seen throughout the entire test they just held. They were acting. This non-violence during the Hunter exam pre-screening leads to a relatively safe space for new applicants to prove their worth and join the Hunter exam, or to drop out early. What these pre-screening tests tell us about Netero is that he only gives an opportunity, such as that of potentially earning a hunter's license, to people with a certain degree of tenacity to them. If you fail any of the pre-tests, you are immediately disqualified from the Hunter exam of that year, even if you were to pass other pre-tests or find the exam sites by yourself. You need a year of reflection at least if you want to give it another go. You could do 10,000 punches of gratitude every day during that time or something, or just give up entirely. What these tests also tell us about Netero is that he is not a harsh person, as he makes sure to weed out any candidates who do not seem up to snuff in risk-free tests before the exam even starts. So if you don't have it in you to be a hunter, then you'll find out as soon as you embark on your journey to the exam site. Although this might make it seem like Netero is a better person than he is. It's not like he hates weaklings of course, but they don't particularly interest him either. They can live and be happy, but it's only the dreamers with heart that get Netero's blessing to take the Hunter exam and potentially obtain the resources that the Hunter's license provides. It's more about getting rid of weaklings as quickly as possible to make the exam more interesting for those with grit than anything else. Looking at the first phase of the Hunter exam, you once again have a grace period where people are tested for endurance. but only the people with enough strength or ambition to go through that endless marathon who are then allowed to face the deadly traps of the second half of this phase. However, all of this says more about Satots than anyone else, since he came up with the first exam phase entirely by himself. It's still cool to see that he has a similar philosophy as Netero though. That just goes to show how influential Netero's methods are within the association. This guy has so much charisma, he got a serious criminal detective to dress up as an entire cow. For the Hunter exam as a whole, the Hunter bylaws state that the chairman gets to decide what the Hunter exam will look like. Aside from choosing the examiners, Netero has surprisingly little influence on what each phase will look like, as that is entirely decided by the examiners themselves. This paints a picture of Netero's philosophy when it comes to the Hunter exam. In the real world, you cannot expect to know what will come your way. And with this in mind, Netero has created an exam where the applicant pool is inherently unbalanced, the tests are varied and unpredictable every year, and even malicious individuals like Tompa or Hisoka are free to do whatever they want if the examinator allows it. On the other hand, the surprise element of the exam also means applicants have the opportunity to show off their hidden talents or evolve into something greater during the exam, by being forced to go outside of their comfort zone. Facing these unknown indomitable challenges will allow one to prove just how multifaceted they are. Whether you just beat everyone in your path with strength and wits like Hisoka, or you manage to get by through making friends like Leorio, these are skills that could serve you well as a hunter, and would probably be useful to the association too. By having this type of Hunter exam, where only people who can make it through diverse challenges get to make it to the end of the exam, you will be left with applicants who are well-rounded and have the most potential in the eyes of Netero, and they can become hunters. This striving to unleash your potential is what Netero wants to nurture within the Hunter Association. Something that further ties into Netero's philosophy for the Hunter exam is that it rejects nobody. Manage to get to the exam site, whether you're the first son of an elite assassin family or some poor guy in a suit aiming to get some money for your education, you'll be able to participate. The Hunter exam is free of charge, which further drives home that Netero does not want to put up any boundaries for participants, aside from proving your determination. Both in status and power, everyone is welcome to participate. Considering that the captain of the boat that picked up our boys is a navigator, I assume that the Hunter Association at least provides some free travel to the country where the exam will take place. It would fit with how Netero wants to give everyone an equal chance at participating in the exam. An equal chance to participate does not mean that the game is fair though. As you may realize, this rule of allowing in anybody into the exam leads to wildly unbalanced matchups, where even a single talented participant can make it so that everybody else is disqualified. But this is what Netero wants. In the real world, you might too encounter prodigies who completely overwhelm you with their talent. During the exam, you might meet a nan user who dislikes you and get you killed in the first round, but that is by design. Netero is probably happy about people like Hisoka or Killua showing up to act as another element of uncertainty and as a deterrent within the exam for participants to navigate around. For some, having to face these overwhelming prodigies may mean losing hope of achieving your dreams, but those with enough conviction, people like Gon, Kurapika or Leorio, they will always give it another shot. This man Leorio risked his life during the exam just to become a doctor and help the poor, yo! And is it really so bad to allow these overpowered individuals into the exam? Hisoka, the literal murderer being present, allowed for Gon to grow. And the same goes for Killua, being confronted with his powerful brother again during the final phase. Killua got to learn a lesson there in his failure. Facing indomitable foes like this will harden applicants that survive and those that drop out both. Gon came out of it stronger, Nicholas dropped out of the exam having learned the lesson, and Ponzu's encounter with Bourbon the Snake Master and Gon made her want to try the exam again, which she failed again because of Killua, but still, I blame Poco for that, man. Fuck Poco, weak ass bitch that he is. On the other hand, Killua, in the second Hunter exam he takes on, just completely overwhelms the trio of brothers from last year, who then quit giving the exam another shot, thus meaning more weaklings are forever weeded out of the exam, which makes the exam more of a real challenge again, as Netero likes, because you don't have these losers running around anymore. The fact that they had Tompa as their greatest ally tells you all you need to know. The same probably goes for a lot of other people who lost to Killua too, causing the exam to have less weak-willed people. Quality over quantity. I do hope one of the people with a strong conviction to return to the exam next year after such a devastating defeat will be Zeppal. It was really sad seeing Killua knock him out. I believe in Zeppao. What the defeat of all those people also means is that Killua could become a hunter, which is great considering his potential as a person and as a hunter. Netero would definitely be happy with this development, and we literally saw this, so yeah, it's true. Back to the first phase of the other exam, Nicholas's early loss in the first phase of the exam really tells us that the exam isn't built for people who think they can just prepare for everything in life. The same goes for what the correct answer was to the granny's quiz. Save your son or your daughter? How can you prepare for such a situation? It's impossible. There will be moments in life where you have to make impossible decisions and face impossible obstacles. If you don't have the determination to face these impossibilities head on, and you just take notes and make calculations on your little computer instead, then perhaps your ambitions aren't great enough, and you are not fit to be a hunter. Looking at Netero's past, you can see he is a man of great passion. The martial arts he loved motivated him to do an insane level of training out of gratitude, which got him to where he is today. The unleashing of potential and motivation is what Netero wants to foster through his Hunter Association and Hunter exam. You should see Netero as a really benevolent man for the people who chase their dreams. He has nothing against those with weak spirits, but it is only those with great determination that he will allow to become hunters and experience the many benefits that come with that status. Overall, what the Hunter exam really thrives on is the concept of survival of the fittest. By going through a variety of tests, only people who can overcome all of them using their strength, wits, or social skills will be able to make it to the end and become a hunter. With this all established, let's continue by going over the rest of the Hunter exam. Well, the second phase. In the second phase, everybody fails because of Menchi being nitpicky. But then Netero himself comes onto the scene so the examinees don't get dropped out just because of a biased examiner. This alone tells us that Netero won't give anyone an unfair test where failure is decided at the whims of an emotional examiner. It's also possible to try the Hunter exam as many times as you want, so Netero isn't merciless towards the weak either. He says as much himself. Despite the exam being deadly, you must have already proven that you are ready to get into the more dangerous phases from the get-go. Failing one of the challenges does not give any harsh penalty except for failing the exam. However, the tests themselves do have a risk of death from early on, so there are already some high stakes and tension, even though you can give up whenever and easily try again next year. The moment that the participants get told they get a free easy entry into the exam next year is also when we get the most dangerous game yet on Zevil Island. Zephal Island, I don't know. So by then, you can choose to give up and grow stronger for next year if you don't think you are ready. Or at least, you've proven yourself enough to not have to go through the initial finding process of the exam site again if you do fail here. This further tells us that Netero respects the strong and wants those who are strong to become hunters. But he is not cruel to those who are weak and understands that they might need to be stronger before coming here. With all this said, there are still times when Netero will be cruel. After the second phase of the Hunter exam, Netero decides to challenge Gon and Killua to a ball game. As you can be certain of, after experiencing the Chimera Ant arc, Gon and Killua would never be able to win against Netero. And we see this too in how Netero handicaps himself during the match, not using his right hand and left leg. By having Gon and Killua face an impossible challenge like this, the story reveals key traits of the boys' personalities, which Netero keeps in mind for when they meet again during the Chimera Ant arc. Killua leaves the game due to feeling inferior to Netero. Meanwhile, Gon's tenacity gets him to make Netero use his right hand, making Gon succeed in his own way while putting his own safety on the line. I think a cool question to ask here is whether Gon knew that Netero would try to protect Gon from his rock-hard abs and that Gon tried to use that to his advantage, or if Gon was truly just so reckless as to smash his head into the wall that is Netero's stomach a second time. We'd like to know what you all think in the comments down below. In any case, Gon fulfilling his own goal is rewarded here, not just with the experience of obtaining success against Netero, but also by Netero giving Gon more time to sleep before the next phase of the exam starts. Netero will reward those who are motivated to improve themselves. Setting a smaller goal or learning a lesson when the odds are insurmountable is something Netero really appreciates. And it's basically the point of this impossible challenge for Gon and Killua. If Gon and Killua had both given up on the ball game, then I don't think that Netero would have given the boys time to rest more, as he would see them as people who have big dreams but don't want to work for them. And that is something that Netero does not appreciate. This description of someone who Netero doesn't like is partially true for Killua, who has dreams of making friends, but he is not sure how to handle such a situation due to his upbringing. It is a problem with a similar root cause as Killua quickly giving up in fights. I love how Killua being afraid of stronger opponents and his dream to stand side by side with Gon as friends are tied together like this, as well as that the story was able to capitalize on this idea from such an early point in the series. Good stuff. Of course, all the subtle characterization for Netero regarding tests does not go to waste, as during the Chimera Ant arc, Netero reappears to give another test to Gon and Killua. After the boys lose Kite and feel bad about their weakness, Netero gives them a chance to join the Ant extermination team. Namely, if Gon and Killua can beat Noko enough in battle, then Netero will let them join. What do we know about Netero by now? He loves putting people in precarious, impossible situations so that they can grow and evolve. Netero's kindness is that he wants to give a person who is ready to chase their dream the opportunity to do so by showing them what they are lacking and giving them a chance to overcome it, no matter how brutal it is. If you are really ready to lay down your life for your dream, Netero is the best person to meet. Gon needs to fight someone who can make him face his feelings of weakness. Noko needs to face someone who's not evil and wants to fight him. Shoot needs to fight someone scary with more talent than him. And Killua needs to face an opponent he isn't sure he can defeat. In this way, the matchups really couldn't be more perfect for all of them. These duos are also kind of mirror images of each other if you think about it. These kind of unfair tests are reflected in Bisky's teaching methods as well. Which makes sense as Bisky was part of Netero's Shingen Ryu martial arts school. Shingen Ryu meaning style that originates from the heart. That woman let two boys fight a serial killer just to polish them up like gemstones. Wing is also part of that school of teaching, and he's a little bit more gentle, being 2 generations down from Netero. Zushi may be able to prove that the gentle way is also good enough to unleash your potential. It should be clear through the deadly hunter exam already, but Netero is all for people risking their lives to stay true to their ambitions and ideals. Like during the ball game, Gon could have split his skull headbutting Netero's abs, and he didn't scold Gon for that. Instead he rewarded him with extra time to rest. The final impossible challenge Netero gave when alive is telling Gon the location of Pito with a smile. Totally normal human being behavior, pointing a child towards the powerful creature that killed his mentor. Gon may not have been able to overcome his inner lingering weakness if he didn't directly face Pito, but what the conclusion of the fight really tells us is what the story thinks of risking one's life for a goal when one isn't ready yet. Perhaps Netero's philosophy isn't perfect after all. Really, every phase of the exam is such an impossible test, isn't it? Now with this little detour done, let's look at the most important exam phase to understand Netero's character and the Hunter world. The final phase. Which is the one that Netero came up with himself. How fitting. Honestly, I just made this video to talk about this bracket now. The final phase of the Hunter exam is decided by none other than Isaac Netero himself. What he came up with this time around is a tournament, where you need to win once to pass the test and get your Hunter's license. Let's start looking at this by analyzing the bracket created by Netero. So, this completely unpredictable tournament bracket in the final phase of the Hunter exam is great. The main purpose of showing such a bracket in any battle manga tournament is to create anticipation, basically to hype up the reader for what can come next. And it sure does. Look at all the interesting potential matchups on display here. With Killua's jealousy and insecurity being focused on during this arc, one could expect a Gon vs Killua matchup. Ooh, and what if Killua managed to show his superiority and then Gon had to face Hisoka in the finals? I mean, they clearly had some setup for a future battle in the previous phase. Maybe we can get the payoff now? You even got Hisoka and Gon placed on opposite sides of the bracket for the typical final boss showdown at the end of the tournament. It would not be super weird to expect Hisoka to just let himself pass through the losers bracket until he could face his forbidden fruit of desire at the end of it. It's actually a pretty cool idea to build up tension like that. A tournament where the final boss loses all battles on purpose just to fight the main character who has been losing every battle up until that point. That's a scary yet enticing scenario. There's also the matchups of Kurapika or Hisoka potentially facing off against Leorio. You know you would not be mad if you actually got that, right? It would be cool to see how Leorio would fight Hisoka for the second time with that big a gap of strength and skill between the two. Or how about Kurapika vs Leorio? It connects back to the first chapter that Leorio and Kurapika meet, and it would be an interesting conflict to see how far these two friends would go for their own dreams, at the possible expense of the others. Kurapika would beat Leorio, no questions asked though. We know all of these situations don't happen, however. Instead, this anticipation is all created just to throw it out of the window. Bam, boom, the element of surprise is here. it's also nice how they hype up a possible tense final match with one final winner and one final loser, acting like the rule about killing leading to disqualification is only put in place to make the unbalanced matchups work out better. Like if killing was allowed, then the first person who'd face Hisoka would be the loser immediately and we could all go home. On the other side of the coin, the bracket is still perfectly made to tell the story that this tournament does tell, and the rules fit well with the arc's themes of not giving up. These tournament rules were created by the writer as the perfect challenge for Gon, who so far has always been able to dodge dilemmas and attain his goal of keeping his friends together and proving himself in Jink's eyes. Choose this candle or this candle? Nah, I'm just gonna blow yours out. Choose this path and fail, or choose this path to leave your friends behind and win? Nah, I'm just gonna break the wall. But in this case, there's no running away from this battle. You either give up or you stay strong. Gon so far has been characterized as always being able to get what he wants. I'm gonna take all my friends with me to the end of the hunter exam, even if I get stuck in a snake-filled cave. But in this case, Gon is facing one of the strongest people left. And being completely outclassed, the only thing Gon can rely on against Hanzo is one of his strongest qualities, his determination. And Gon wins, of course, as you saw watching the anime or reading the manga. But despite winning the match, the struggle he went through throughout the entire exam and while facing Hanzo becomes meaningless, as Gon is unable to keep his friend group together all the way to the end of the exam. Gon sacrificing his arm, being stubborn to the point where he complains about not winning the right way, it gets him a hunter's license that he feels unhappy with, which makes it so that he isn't able to be there when his friend needed him the most. When it comes to Killua in this arc, his biggest weakness was giving up in the face of strength, and his insecurities bottling up around Gon and spilling out through him reverting back to what his family expects him to be. The tournament tackles these two problems of Killua by providing him an unbeatable opponent, who also happens to be the main cause of his insecurities, his older brother, Illumi Zoldyck. Illumi participating in the hunter exam to follow Killua, as well as to obtain the hunter license for his job, tells you everything you need to know about Illumi. He lives for his family and for his work. Nothing more, nothing less. Meanwhile, all that this dude Killua really wants is a friend who he can be on an even level with. A child's simple wish. During the tournament, in front of his most manipulative sibling, Killua is able to realize what he wants, but he isn't strong enough to stop his insecurities from influencing him. Presented with his greatest opponent, the root of his insecurities, Killua is not able to stand strong and gives up. In a way, Gon and Killua both meet their greatest opponent at the end of the exam. But where Gon's optimism nets him a hunter license, with Sato's giving him a new goal for Gon to live up to the hunter license, Killua's pessimism brings him to a very dark place, turning into the type of person he desperately wants to avoid becoming and going back to the home that held him captive in the first place. Now about the bracket placements. The bracket is simultaneously used to show what Netero, and by extension the current Hunter Association, thinks of what a hunter should be like. This can be most clearly seen by looking at who got the most chances in this final phase and who got the least chances. The bracket placements were decided based on 3 categories: physical ability, mental equity, and overall impression. The first 2 are rather obvious: your physical strength and how you use your smarts to think strategically during the exam. The third category, however, is a little more subjective. It best reflects Netero's thought process, and it holds the most weight on deciding how many chances each participant got in this final phase. The overall impression category is based on the opinions Netero had of the hunters during the interviews that were held before the final phase, and, more importantly, the assessments of Netero and the examiners of each examinee's potential as a hunter. Now, let's look at these rankings. 5. Hanzo and Gon. 4. Kurapika, Hisoka, and Poko. 3. Killua and Bodoro. 2. Leorio and Illumi. Hanzo and Gon are most well favored. These are 2 characters who have been shown to have the aptitude, physical ability, smarts, well, Hanzo at least has the spirit, are communicative, and are driven to achieve their goals. Although they have their flaws, their potential as hunters, according to Netero, has given them the highest regard out of all the examinees left. Now let's look at Illumi. Despite being basically the strongest character here, Illumi is massively disadvantaged on the bracket, This must mean that Netero and the examiners do not see much hunter potential in him. During the entire exam, Illumi was mostly on his own, only contacting Hisoka occasionally for professional reasons, avoiding any other contact, and basically skipping an entire exam phase by cheesing the badge collection with his strength and then just hiding for a few days under the ground. Someone like Poco had to put way more effort into both collecting the badge and then hiding for the remaining days, which earned him more chances in the final phase. Poco also seemingly became friends with Ponzu during the Hunter exam, as we later see the two in some kind of friendly relationship during the Chimera Ant arc. It should have been me though. Hunters are not meant to be hermits like Illumi. They are meant to be collaborative and outgoing. And Netero's judgment wasn't wrong, seeing how in the rest of the manga, Illumi only interacts with people inside of his family. He only goes outside for his family or his job. Killua's low score can be explained with similar reasoning. Despite showing off both his power and cunning as an assassin, Netero still only gave him 3 chances. 2 instances in particular where Killua shows un-hunter-like behavior is when he gives up during Netero's ballgame, and him just being a negative Nancy in general, disrespecting those weaker than him, like when Leorio was about to give up in phase 1, and even more prominently when he faces the brothers during the 4th phase of the exam. But of course, he still showed great skill and was more outgoing than his brother, which shows that Killua has more hunter potential than Illumi at least. Low bar though. The bracket also reflects how most hunters are selfish, with all current examinees trying to get a license for selfish, self-centered reasons, while Leorio wants a license so he could become a doctor who helps others, a selfless act. The similarity between Leorio and Illumi is that they both only want the license as a means to an end. They don't want to become bounty hunters, assassin hunters, money hunters, jackpot hunters, or medicine hunters. No, they just need a hunter license to do something else. Illumi for his job, and Leorio so he can become a doctor. Seemingly, Leorio is not as appreciated as a potential hunter for all his selfless actions during the exam, like giving Tonpa medicine or warning his friends about the snakes. Don't come in here! I think we should go in. Or maybe it's that those actions made up for his hard-headedness during the Trick Tower phase. For people complaining about how Leorio got carried a little during the exam, he himself acknowledged it, and the examiners realized that too, as per his bracket placement. Also, don't forget that Netero expected Leorio to win against Bodoro anyway, just saying, so don't hate on my boy too much, alright? Kurapika and Hisoka were both involved with many hunters during the exam, and they did not lack in strength or smarts either. Hisoka testing others must have been well liked by Netero, seeing as he did not get a big downgrade in score like his one-sided BFF Illumi did. It is true that Hisoka gets personally involved with many people during the exam, but also outside of it. Good hunter material. Kurapika was a great participant during the hunter exam too, opening up to form relationships with Gon and Leorio, showing his strength and willpower during the various exam phases, proposing to team up with Leorio during phase 4, and making a deal with a battle-hungry Hisoka. Kurapika did have some lesser moments, specifically in phase 3, where he refused to cooperate with his peers due to an understandable yet egotistical reason. But that is really the only blemish on his record during this entire hunter exam. Kurapika is strong, smart, outgoing, and determined. All great qualities of a hunter. Now if you're wondering about why Bodoro got this placement, nobody cares! I don't want to see any Bodoro fans in the comment section because you guys don't exist! Anyway, what we can gather from all this is a further understanding of the potential that Netero wants to foster through his hunter association. The people with the strength and willingness to lay down their lives for their dreams. People like this are given the freedom to pursue whatever they want to do. Freedom to explore barren countries, freedom to kill more people, or the freedom to pursue education to become a doctor and help others. You've proven yourself as a well-rounded person, now join the Hunter Association and follow your dreams. Unleash the inner beast. And by that, I mean unleash your potential. Nothing beastly about that. Speaking of beasts, Netero vs Meruem. The limitless potential of humanity that Netero wants to foster through him and the Hunter Association is directly countered by Meruem, who claims he is an endpoint of evolution, born as the perfect being. Okay, Cell. This contrast between Netero and Meruem is immediately shown during their fight, in how Netero could never defeat a natural born talent like Meruem. on his own. Meruem trusts in himself to face any obstacle that comes his way, but Netero knows that is no way to live. King of Ants, you cannot simply be content with the way you are now. Meruem, you know nothing of the bottomless malice and evolution within the human heart. Ba-boom! Without science, the pinnacle of human ingenuity, evolution, and cooperation, it may not have been possible for Netero to kill a beast from nature like Meruem. Netero's nuke represents two things: the world of humanity striving to become the best, and the destruction that comes with it. One talented individual is nothing compared to the combined efforts of humanity. This is also reflected in the Succession War, where you have Hulkenberg, who uses the Nen of both himself and his comrades to obtain an ability that could defeat even Meruem. Meruem is brought to the realization that actually humans like Netero and Komugi, who strive to do their best and become better every day, are the true treasures of this world. But at this point, it's already too late for Meruem, and then we all collectively start crying our eyes out. I think Netero would have liked Komugi's tenacity, but she's also the type of person who would have a really hard time passing the hunter exam. Well, it's not like she needed to be a hunter to become successful in her field anyway, which is interesting to think about. There aren't really any sports hunters because they could just join a sports association rather than a hunter association, huh? I said before that Netero's final impossible test while alive was pointing gun towards Pito, but Netero's fight with Meruem may have been just as much of an impossible test and a learning moment for Meruem. Just like the ball game, it might seem like you can win, but Netero has already decided who will be the victor from the start. The Dark Continent and beyond. When Netero passed, the hunter world mourned. But there is one man who smiled through that moment of sadness, and that man is called Beyond Netero, Isaac Netero's son. With his dad gone, Beyond finally can engage his plan to enter the Dark Continent. It seems Netero was aware of this, as he left the tape behind for the Zodiac, the hunters he trusts most, with his post-mortem final impossible challenge. And similar to Nen After Death, this impossible challenge might surpass even impossibility itself. The challenge is for the Hunter Association to be the leading organization to explore the Dark Continent, in direct competition with Netero's own son. Netero claims his son may be even more of a true hunter than himself. Although knowing that Beyond likely made Pariston restrict help on the Chimera Ant mission to kill Netero, and how it was recently revealed Beyond likely had many children solely to use them as pawns for his Dark Continent plan, I think that Netero may have given Beyond a little bit too much credit. Bringing children into the world solely to use them as a stepping stone for your grand plan seems a little bit too selfish, even by hunter standards. As for Netero's final impossible challenge, it might be possible that Netero may see Beyond's Dark Continent expedition not just as an opportunity for the association to evolve, but also to teach Beyond and the Zodiac what it means to be a true hunter. By pitting the two against each other, a chaotic group of hunters using loopholes and tricks to get their way, versus the Zodiac, who use their wits, effort and teamwork to obtain their victories. Time will tell how their battle will play out, and the outcome will tell us what it will mean to be a hunter now that Netero is gone. Striving to unleash your potential is great. Striving to unleash your potential together with others is greater. On another note, Pariston leaving the Zodiac only stimulates Netero's will here, as him joining Beyond strengthens Beyond's forces, which forces the association to evolve even further beyond, which is exactly what Netero wants. Pariston is kinda like what you see in robot sci-fi movies, where robots have to protect humanity at all costs, but then it turns out that the programming tells them the only way to truly protect humanity is to kill humans. Except for with Pariston, he's been installed to preserve Netero's ideals within the Hunter Association, and the best way to do that for him is to leave and challenge the association, so they can evolve further and unleash their potential. Pretty cool of that guy! I'm kinda inspired now to make a video on Pariston too someday. Netero's influence on the world of Hunter x Hunter is not to be underestimated, being a leading figure for over 70 years. The Hunter exam he established clearly informs the world of Hunter x Hunter, And the way it is used by the narrative is an excellent way to introduce us to the story of Hunter x Hunter, with a good interesting premise to challenge our main characters, putting them in situations that let them show the many sides of their personalities, as well as to show off the rules of the world, establishing a harsh, but ultimately fair world. This initial setting sets the stage of the hunter-centric world that we see Gon go through, the spoils it can bring, but also the darkness it facilitates. Right now in the manga, we're seeing this world slowly shift with the start of the second part of the story, Chido, Leorio, Pariston, Beyond, Jing. What the Hunter world will look like now that Netero is gone is in your hands. Thanks for that, Netero, and thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and leave your thoughts on Netero and the Hunter exam in the comment section down below. I love you, and bye bye.